I don't think politics is a dirty word. I think it's great. I really enjoy bringing community together, affecting change, giving people agency to be able to control their neighborhoods and their communities, and really doing that through the ballot box. Welcome, everyone, to the September 2023 edition of The Impact, a sustainable CT podcast for your edification, your enlightenment, and your entertainment, too. I'm Jim Hunt, Communications Manager at Sustainable CT, so if you're looking for someone to blame for this podcast, well, you can blame me. But remember, this is never a one-way conversation. We always want to hear from you for our edification and enlightenment. Drop us a note, won't you? To info@sustainablect.org. The Impact is brought to you in part by the Connecticut Green Bank. The Connecticut Green Bank confronts climate change by increasing and accelerating investment into Connecticut's green economy to create more resilient, healthier, and equitable communities. And we are oh so glad they do. Visit them at ctgreenbank.com. Remember, Sustainable CT is independently funded. We don't receive support from any level of government or from a university. Not even from a magical rainbow unicorn money tree. No, sir, but you can be a Sustainable CT sponsor. Find out how at sustainablect.org. It is my great pleasure to be conversing today with Joshua Steele Kelly, Town Manager and CEO of the beautiful town of Winchester, Connecticut. He's held that illustrious post since April of 2021. Prior to that, he served as the Town Administrator of Bolton, Connecticut, and as Conservation Commissioner in Waterford. Josh is a graduate of Wheaton College in the People's Republic of Massachusetts. Go Thunder, yeah. And he earned a master's in public administration from UConn. Go Huskies in 2019. And for those of you who don't know, and there may be a few, Sustainable CT will be having its 2023 awards ceremony in Winchester in October at the site of the American Mural Project, a fabulous location. So I'm very happy that Josh has taken the time out of his busy schedule to talk to me. Thank you very much, Josh, and welcome to the show. We got that all out of the way.
Thank you very much for having me.
How you doing? You're running around a little bit today, and are you staying cool? Because it's a little steamy out there.
Yes, Winchester, we've got all our cooling stations activated. Thankfully, I'm in Town Hall, so that's one of our cooling stations here in town, and doing the best that we can to make sure the residents are aware of it.
I like that.
The station's always the name of the game, right? You know that with the podcast, yeah.
The administrator gets to hang out in the cooling center. That's good. That's good.
It works for me, yeah.
Yeah. I really want to hear about you a little bit. Tell me about yourself. How did you first get involved with town administration and in that whole profession? I mean, what's it been like working for Winchester?
You got it. So my experience with local government started in I think a pretty unique way. I originally went to college at Ithaca College in New York just for 2 years, and I studied opera and vocal performance.
Really? That's great.
Yes, and if you want me to sing, I think you probably need to change the subject of the podcast a little bit. I get that request a lot, though. And while I was there, all of my extracurriculars were kind of politically oriented, and I've always had an interest in government and politics and so forth. And everything that I was doing in my studies was very focused on music. And I realized that my passion and my career drive really should be switched. So now I have music that fills my spare time, and that's wonderful.
Good for the soul.
Great for the soul. Oh, yeah. And my career turned to government, and I ran for office for the first time while I was still in college. I was at Wheaton College. I ran for a position on the Town of Waterford's Zoning Board of Appeals, and I won, which I didn't expect to happen. And then I ran again 2 years later for a seat on the town's legislative body, which is the representative town meeting, and I won that. So it just kind of kept going.
You seem surprised, but
Oh, I was very surprised. I'm still a little surprised. And I was the top vote getter. I think I still hold the record in town for the highest vote getter in an RTM race by proportion. And it was a wonderful opportunity, a wonderful experience. I learned so much. And at the same time, I decided that if I wanted to move forward with any level of government administration, a master's reasonable. I had a great opportunity at UConn to go and make that happen while I was still contributing in my community locally. Yeah. And I realized if I want to get involved with town government and not be up for election every couple of years, I needed to pursue something in town management.
Yeah.
So I love the opportunity working locally to see the fruits of my labor right in front of me, to see projects come to life, to work with people, look people in the eye, and know that we're actively working as an organization to help make their life better in some way. And in Winchester, that's been the name of the game. Since I started, it's been all about action. This is a town that has had a storied and difficult past, especially in the last few decades. And I can certainly go into detail about that. But so when I started, I wanted to come in and make as great a difference as I could in the time that I had. And we certainly have. So sustainable CT has been part of that, and making sure that we are moving in a sustainable manner on all sides, not just environmentally, but really culturally and in the way that we're developing. And focusing on things like roads, focusing on social services. We've brought a lot to the forefront. We've provided great services for our residents and expanded them. And I'm going to miss being here.
Now, Winstead is a really fascinating place to me for a lot of reasons, but one of which is it's curious. It's not uncommon in Connecticut to have an urban center, a named urban center that has a municipality feel to it, but actually be part of a larger town. Something, I don't know. I suppose Willimantic and Wyndham is kind of the same way.
It's a perfect example, or Mystic and Stonington, or
Yeah. Yep. And I'm wondering, how does that work? Is there a natural tension in town administration, town government? Is there a natural tension, either politically, geography, in terms of geography, demographics, interests, money, between the town, urban and rural areas of the town? Does that become a tension? How does that work?
It's very interesting. You have an incredible amount of diversity in Winchester, both in terms of I mean the biographical factors of our population, but beyond that, you have a significant diversity of incomes when it comes to the rural versus urban centers. You have and diverse needs. I mean, our urban center has been in the past. It was subjected to the flood of 1955, and this town's still recovering from that, believe it or not.
Really?
Economically, half of Main Street was washed away. And when you see pictures from just before the flood, you think, wow, this was an amazing place to visit. Captivating, wonderful. There are a lot of stories that are great from Winstead back from that time. But since the flood, now Route 44 is Main Street. It goes right through town, cuts it in half to an extent. And you really only have half of the street that has housing, any type of housing or any type of real retail business.
Yeah.
So it feels like a community that's been split in half, and one portion of it just disappeared. So you have unique hydrological needs down here. You have unique needs to help prevent flooding. Certainly, there's now a dam in place that helps regulate the river. But even when it comes to these urban flooding issues, more severe weather, storms, our drainage systems really needed improvement. That's one of the things we've been working on most with our roadway improvements. And that's not an issue that we're seeing out in our rural community. Now, both our rural and our urban communities experience things like poverty, experience things like needing to connect with our land use office, our social service office, our senior center. But the needs are very concentrated in the urban center. And there's only so much time and attention that we can dedicate as a municipal staff to these different issues. And there is a bit of a tug of war over, should it be the rural issues? Should it be the urban issues? I think because, at least in Winstead, about 8,000 of our 11,000 person population lives in the urban center.
Right.
So that tug of war usually wins out to focus on this area of town, or one of the more, to put it bluntly, one of our more affluent portions of our town is right around Highland Lake, one of the largest natural lakes in Connecticut. And sometimes the tug of war is a three-way tug of war. And that's a whole separate part of town that requires a certain level of attention, especially for ecological purposes. So it's a challenge. It's a tightrope that needs to be walked. I think that Winchester walks it pretty well. And certainly we're always trying to improve ourselves in our processes, though.
Now, you folks, Winchester was certified bronze in June.
Yes, very exciting.
Congratulations for that. That's
Thank
great.
you.
What led to the decision to pursue sustainable CT certification? Was that your influence, or what were the major factors in going after that?
My introduction to sustainable CT actually came a little bit before my work in Waterford, Bolton, or Winchester. I worked in the town of Windsor, and at the time they were examining, is this something that we want to pursue, and their certification. And I took a look at the program, and I was an active member of the Waterford RTM at that point. And I said, regardless of what Windsor does, I don't have the final say over that, but I'm an active member of the Waterford legislature. We should bring this forward. I haven't heard anybody in Waterford mention it. So I was the one who proposed it, moved it forward, had the municipal resolution passed by the RTM in Waterford. And Waterford is a bronze certified community, so that's excellent.
That's right.
When I became town administrator in Bolton, I brought it there, and we became that community is also bronze certified. And now here in Winchester, before I even arrived on site, I knew that I wanted to bring this program forward. Yeah. Northwestern Connecticut, I think, didn't have as much of a focus on sustainable CT, wasn't reached in the same way in the first couple of years of the program's existence. So I think there has been more of an effort. I know that Litchfield has certainly put the time and effort in. I know Barkhamsted's moving in that direction if they didn't already receive their certification. Sure. There are a lot of towns around us that are starting to put more of an emphasis on this. We're up here in the beautiful foothills of the Berkshires. Certainly ecology is on everybody's mind. Sustainable development and growth are on Winchester's mind as the second largest town, believe it or not, with just 11,000 people in it in all of Litchfield County. Yeah. That matters more to us than I think to the average community in Connecticut. So my history with sustainable CT has been pretty long, and it really is a no-brainer from my perspective.
We got to get you going. We got to get you going all over the state.
You got it.
As an ambassador.
Bringing on a road show, yeah.
There's still some holdouts out there, a few of them anyway. So
there are some holdouts, but I see the value of this program every time that I sit down. I had a department directors meeting earlier. When I sit down and I hear people start to talk about wonderful, great things, having sustainable purchasing policies, and trying to focus on those items. When I hear people talk about trying to deploy zero emission vehicle fleet here in town, and they're talking. It's about, hey, we could get points for that. And at the surface level, it's about, hey, what can we do to get another level of certification? But under that, the values that are being instilled, the practices, we're taking a pretty large organization and we're turning it into something that can be a real force for sustainable good. And what a great framework to have.
Well, as we used to say in the marketing business, it's good and good for you. Because
exactly.
It saves you money. I mean, quite a number of ways we can help towns save money too. Whether it's in energy reduction, use of energy. There are a lot of good underlying points to this. We get in trouble sometimes. People say, "Well, it's sustainability. That's environmentalism, and I don't want to deal with that." It's a lot more than that. It's a lot more that brings a quality of life to towns. That we try to make that argument, and it gets through. I guess sometimes it gets through. Well, let's talk about Winchester then. Part of your certification effort, Winchester promoted participation in CPACE, which for the uninitiated is Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy. The CPACE provides, that upfront financing for clean energy projects in building, in property, for property owners. And you've had some early activity in that area. Tell us a little bit about the impact that has had, or that you think it will have, or why you went in that route with CPACE.
Absolutely. So this was really important to me because when I started here in Winchester, unlike Bolton's a much more rural community that I was a part of, not as many large manufacturing or commercial buildings, but in Winchester, it's a mill town. And we have a lot of what would be defined as old brownfields, these old mill buildings that need time, attention, a little TLC. And the way that we need to approach bringing new life into them involves a lot of money. There's no way around it. So to provide a service through CPACE that doesn't burden the town with any administrative, thoughts and burdens, but gives our residents, gives investors, gives commercial property and industrial property owners the opportunity to connect with the Connecticut Green Bank to learn more about what is this program? How can I use it to take these different brownfields that I'm seeing around Winchester and really uplift them?
Yeah.
And not just to get them back up and running, but to make sure that they're up and running efficiently, that they are seeing those cost savings down the road. Some of these investments, whether it be energy efficient windows to solar to you name it, these are the little things that add up and tip the scales, taking a project from oh God, this isn't going to work, we need to tear the building down, to hey, we've got a viable project. We've got we can get people to come in, fill this space, make it profitable, and make it operational. I'm sitting here in Winchester Town Hall right now, and for listeners who haven't been here in Winchester, one side of our main street is really focused on residential and small retail spaces. And the other side, the only buildings that survived the flood of 55 are some of those larger, more structurally sound mill buildings. And we have 3 across the street from me that I can see out my window right now that are empty and vacant. Some as large as 90,000 square feet, others a little smaller, more in the ballpark of 20 to 25,000. But these are big buildings that need this help. Multiple building owners on this stretch of Main Street alone have reached out to the CPACE program and have irons in the fire. And it's brought hope to me for our downtown area. Regardless of what those buildings end up being, certainly a building in use and a building that is focused on being sustainable in its operation is infinitely better from my perspective than a building that goes unused and deteriorates.
Sure.
And it's bringing hope to the town too. This town has needed some of that time and attention, some of that investment. And it's programs like CPACE that bring hope, that bring money, and an ability to invest in a reasonable manner, that are going to help bring Winstead back to the former place of glory that it once had.
Well, in the Connecticut Green Bank, those folks are really good to work with.
Yeah,
they'll walk you through the whole process. They're real humans. They're very personable and down to earth, and they really walk you through the process. So they're great people to work with in this too. And you're right; those mill buildings. I mean, there are a lot of those throughout the Northeast, but certainly in Connecticut, there are a lot of these old mill towns that have never bounced back since,
whatever happened
the day. Yeah. I mean, and I know that, the site of the American Mural Project, we'll get to that in a minute, where we'll be going. That was another old mill building. There are a bunch of them in that little quadrant too down there that have been reused or repurposed, which is really cool. Tell me about, let's switch gears a moment and tell me about Highland Lake, which is a really sweet, it's like a gem. But there's got to be a lot of pressure on that for development and how you go about trying to protect the riparian zone, as it were. And it also must be quite a tourist attraction in some respects. So let's talk about the lake, because it's a big part of Winchester.
You're right. It's a huge part of who we are. In terms of our total tax base, it's about 30%. Of our total income.
That's where the money
come from properties, right? From properties that are on the lake.
Yeah,
and that's incredible. And I'm from Waterford, where we have Millstone Nuclear Power Plant. So you have a single payer that's paying about a third of the property taxes there in town. So to have a single attraction, a single environmental feature in town that comprises so much of our town's really our municipal budget and our economy, it's significant. It's significant for us to invest in this because it is one of the largest natural lakes in Connecticut, and it's pristine. It's in great condition.
Is it? Okay. I didn't know. I haven't seen it in a while. I mean, it was years ago when I was in that, saw that lake.
Yeah, but it is crowded. It's crowded up there. There are a lot of different homes that have been built, especially there are really 3 bays. It's a 444 acre lake on its surface. So, but there are a lot of homes that have been built in first bay. Second and third bay are a little more sparsely populated, and new zoning laws that have gone into effect in the last several decades have certainly helped, I think, slow down the overdevelopment in that area. But not only do we need to preserve it to maintain the water quality and to make sure that it's ecologically sound. We need to preserve it also for the integrity of the town and its budget and its ability to continue to be a tourist destination, to continue to be a place that's desirable for people to live. And the more money that we're able to bring in through our budget, the more we're able to provide services, the more people want to live here. And it's a positive feedback loop. It's much in the same way that, of course, improvements to the water and the lake itself creates a bit of a positive feedback loop. And you can have the opposite of that occur when you have invasive species, when you have certainly any algal blooms, things of that nature. So there's been a lot of time and attention. Thankfully, we have a great volunteer group here in town. It's called the Highland Lake Watershed Association that focuses a large majority of its time on taking water quality tests, working with the New England Aquatic Research NEAR to get those tests done, to make a plan each year for how they're going to treat invasive milfoil and other invasive species, and to make sure that the water quality stays pristine. Now, we also have recreational issues that come up on the lake, and certainly I can tell you more if you're interested about, what having a state boat launch on our lake entails, and the different even police issues that can arise as a result of those recreational opportunities. But the lake, so you can see this is really multifaceted. You have the environmental side, you have the economic side, you have a recreational component, and all of it comes together to signal this is a really important feature of our town. It's certainly not the only one. It's a draw, but it's not the only draw to our town. If we didn't spend a considerable amount of time and energy, especially thanks to those volunteers, we would be in trouble. And a lot of our efforts for sustainable CT did focus on Highland Lake. So it's been a great opportunity for us to reflect on what are the steps that we've taken in the past and that we're doing well. What are we doing well to preserve this lake? And then a framework for what else could we do to help? What are the other actions that other towns are taking to keep water quality as pristine as possible?
Well, and it's a complex management issue because, as you point out, there are a lot of competing interests surrounding that lake. And everybody wants their piece, maybe for different and sometimes conflicting purposes, and can become
very true,
very difficult management issue. Let's take a break a second. We'll come right back and we'll jump back into it.
Sounds good.
We'll return to our program in just a moment. You've been listening to The Impact, a Sustainable CT podcast. Hey, while you're out there tripping the web fantastic, don't forget to join us on Facebook for some fun and interesting stuff. Guaranteed safe for children and pets. Come on, be our friend, won't you? At facebook.com/sustainableCT. And we, like millions of others, have hopped on the Instagram Threads bandwagon at instagram.com/sustainableCT and threads.net at sustainableCT. And of course, we're LinkedIn. Search for Sustainable CT from your LinkedIn page, and you'll find us right there, being all LinkedIn and media social. And if you're not yet a subscriber to Actions and Impact, the Sustainable CT newsletter, you could be missing out on some very important information to you, to your organization, and to your town. Accept no substitutes. Do yourself a favor and subscribe today. And you can do that where? At sustainablect.org. And speaking of important information, we'll be having our annual awards celebration, the 2023 Sustainable CT Awards celebration at the site of the American Mural Project, 90 Whiting Street, in the beautiful small city of Winstead, on October 17th from 4 to 7 p.m. Enjoy music and light fare and catch up with your Connecticut town peers. We'll also be screening a special trailer of the 4th episode of Connecticut Public's Resourceful program, with producers on hand to answer questions and provide backstories about the show. And trust me, you'll want to see the American Mural Project. It's the largest indoor collaborative piece of artwork in the world. Yes, it is, spanning 120 feet in length and 5 stories in height. The mural portrays a diverse spectrum of laborers who have enriched American society and culture over the past century, and is a celebration of ingenuity, productivity, and inclusiveness. So please come join us. Register today because space is limited, and we'll see you there. Let's get back to the program. Guy was asking Josh about how busy he must be, and he made this announcement.
A little more busy than usual. I actually put in my 60 days notice.
Wow.
Yeah, but I'll be here. So I'm going to be here with just enough time to hopefully get our sustainable CT committee together to move forward with a silver certification, give marching orders. and I'll be here long enough to be here or be in town for the award ceremony that's being held.
Okay.
But that's October 20th is my last day.
Do we get to announce that? Do we make news today?
You can share that information. Yeah, they actually. So my the information was public on, I guess, last Monday, but the information of where I'm going was just announced yesterday down in New London County. So
wow, where are you headed?
It's the Thames Valley Council for Community Action. It's one of the major community action groups around the state, focusing on social services in New London County. So,
that's wonderful. Yeah.
It's a big organization. They do a lot. So I'm sure that my workload's only probably going to increase, but I'm really going to miss it here. So
that's wonderful. Well, congratulations. That's
thank you.
We can stay in touch and.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I already, and actually I'm the one, I'm moving back to my hometown of Waterford, and I was the one who introduced the original resolution to get that town involved with sustainable CT. And I know that they've got their bronze, but they've got to go for silver now. So I'm coming back to help them move forward too.
Excellent. Well, this will be a cakewalk by comparison to everything else you're doing.
Hey, there you go.
You got going on. I want to ask you about, kind of on the subject of tourism and the lake. There's also the tourism for the city center, in Winstead, which displays a remarkable architectural aesthetic in parts of that small city. I mean, you've got Victorian and neoclassical and Greek revival and all. You've got a real architectural punch in this town. You wouldn't expect it. Right? I'm sorry. I wouldn't have expected that. I'm driving through and whoa, this is some pretty nice stuff here, which is an interesting point for a town manager, where you're saying, well, how do you protect the historical quality and the aesthetics of the town to make it attractive to tourism and bring in that money while maintaining, at the same time, economic growth, making the town welcoming to new business and new residents who may want to tear down and rebuild and all this, what goes on in normal economic activity for economic opportunity. How do you juggle that?
Man, talk about a complex management issue, right? Yeah. There's a lot of moving pieces to really Main Street and downtown Winchester's tourism. So since I started, I've put a huge focus on trying to attract attention, put Winchester more on the map, put Winstead more on the map. And businesses to town. And as different storefronts have been fixed up on Main Street, as different buildings have been bought and sold, we're having conversations with the individuals who are buying and selling them to make sure that they understand our expectation of what it means to put your best foot forward, right? To make sure that if you have beautiful architecture, we're here to be a service, we're here to be a help. If there's something that you need to keep your building looking as great as it is. Obviously, we don't have tons and tons of money to give out or anything like that, but come on down to our land use office. Talk to them about what permits do you need, what work, let's get this work done for you, and let's be as proactive as possible. Since I've been here, we've had 20 new businesses open in and around Main Street and Whiting Street, and we'll talk about Whiting Street in just a bit with the American Mural Project, I know. And so we've seen tremendous growth. We have also and this is sometimes a hot button topic. I was not here when this law was introduced, but we do have a blight ordinance here in Winchester. Yeah. Through that blight ordinance, it's an opportunity for us. It's an opportunity for us to reach out to individuals who own buildings where maybe they're historic, maybe they're not, but they're not being kept to an extent that is inviting for tourism, that's inviting for historic preservation, things of that nature. And it gives us the opportunity to talk to them about,
the conversation.
These are the things that need to happen in order for this building to be preserved. We want to help preserve it for your benefit so that you're not in a bad situation down the road. Try not to be punitive. Try to make sure that it's really focused on the positive of how do we get you to a place where your property is in great shape. And it's been successful. We've seen a lot of progress made. We did also have a facade and business startup improvement forgivable loans that were offered as part of the American Rescue Plan Act. And that is some we did submit for some innovative points through Sustainable CT based on those programs, where we offered up to $20,000 to businesses that currently exist to help fix up their facade on Main Street to help preserve that historic integrity, or make improvements within the shop, or whatever it might be that makes it more inviting for individuals to come in. And we provided up to $10,000 to new businesses that chose Winchester as their location for their new venture, whatever it might be, an expansion or whatever the case is. So we have all of that happening on Main Street. We have this is actually brand new as of 2 weeks ago. We have a historic commission that has just been created by our Board of Selectmen.
Really? That's brand new, huh?
Brand new. And not a lot of towns in Connecticut have a historic commission, but we have a historic society that it ebbs and flows, right? It's volunteers, as you'd expect. The town decided it wants to have a dedicated group of people that it oversees to help really get an understanding of the historic inventory that we have here in town, and to put time and attention towards figuring out what's needed for that inventory. What do we need to help preserve the character of Winchester? Is it grants? Is it historic districts for tax credit purposes? What are those needs? And to advocate for them. And to make sure that events are going forward that continue to help put Winchester on the map, continue to help bring tourism in, which in turn helps us invest back in historic preservation. And the last thing I'll mention, Winchester is one of the lucky towns that received a Communities Challenge grant back in early 2022 for Main Street improvements. So one of the ways that we manage this is, of course, we don't want to change any of the major buildings and architecture on Main Street. It's wonderful to see all of it the way that it is. But there are things that the town's responsible for that we can make a difference in. So there are certainly some buildings and some blank walls that the town owns or has some influence over, where we've received a sum of money from that grant to put up public art and murals to help beautify the town, to bring, not just Greek Revival, not just Victorian and all of these other architectural features, but let's bring some modernity into the town too. Let's bring some beauty, some art. Also sidewalk reconstruction, making sure that everything's accessible, ADA compliant, make sure that everybody has the chance to observe, the historic nature of the town. So there are a few components to that project. The one I'm most excited about is we have a little over $100,000 to create educational wayside signs like you'd see at a national park, to help tell you a little bit about what you're looking at as you're walking around town. So there'll be probably about 10 to 15 signs as you walk up and down Main Street. And you're going to be able to learn about, there's a mural in our post office of Abraham Lincoln. Why is that there? And what's the story behind it? And there's actually a very interesting story about Abe Lincoln having to really focus on Winstead's two post offices and figure out how he was going to merge them, because apparently there were some disputes about that during his presidency. It will help people learn more about the flood and what's happened. So I'm very excited about the educational opportunities there and the opportunities to make things more accessible and a little more beautiful on Main Street. It's all complicated, but moving forward in a way that makes our Main Street much more attractive and obviously much more active for businesses, with 20 new businesses open in between Whiting Street and Main Street in the last 2.5 years.
It is a beautiful little town, and with a dynamic center to it that has, it feels really good when you get down there. It has its challenges, like every town its size and age, in the periphery and some of the outer avenues. But it is a nice town. Now the NCCC, the Northwestern Connecticut Community College, is also located in Winchester. Go Moose! They're the Moose.
Yep.
I figured that out today. I didn't know that. How does that play a part in the town's development at all? I mean, does it at all? It's been there not very long, as I understand it.
In the history of the town, I couldn't tell you exactly what date the community college opened as a community college, but it's been several decades at the very least, and it plays a huge role in our town. There are thousands of students that take classes at the community college. I know during the pandemic, they were one of the only Connecticut state colleges and community colleges that didn't lose attendees. Most of the community colleges saw a significant drop in attendance and enrollment, and Northwestern Community College really pulled its weight and was able to maintain services for students, get people in the door. It has a great nursing program and a great partnership across the street with Hartford Healthcare that allows for a lot of nursing students to come to our community. And it's the only institution of higher education now in all of Litchfield County. So it's definitely a gem to have here in the downtown area. I know that the students, especially on our eastern end of town, are frequenting those businesses, so it helps.
I was going to say they've got to bring in some dollars too.
Absolutely. Now your average community college student, they're not necessarily walking up and down Main Street and spending at every store, but it really is. Having been a college student myself not that long ago, I feel comfortable saying that. But it's just such a wonderful connection to have here in town. We work with them we have a intern right now in our police department from Northwest Community College who's studying criminal justice. We have, I believe it's 4 interns that may be coming and joining our social service agency this academic year. So when it comes to resources, when it comes to economic development and growth, and providing that higher level of education, especially tuition free now with Connecticut the state community college system, what a benefit for our town.
Now that campus is up in the same neck of the woods as the American Mural Project.
Correct.
So I could transition to over there. We were there a week or so ago to look at that venue. It's just astonishing. We're going to be having our annual award celebration at that site. It's a breathtaking facility with a visual narrative that just speaks volumes.
Very much so.
We're very excited about that. It's coming up on October 17th. Tell us a little bit about Winchester's relationship to that institution. I know it preceded your arrival, I'm assuming, because they've been working on this forever to get that thing going. But what's your understanding of how that fits into the community up there?
So, and Whiting Street as a whole is becoming a bit of a cultural center for town. And we have several different new developments on the cultural front. But the American Mural Project is an item that recently opened its doors back in 2022. They formally had their opening. And it's such a wonderful benefit to our community. So we have we have children here in town that go up there for summer camps and are getting connected with not just art, but construction, with different opportunities to get involved, get creative, and I think outside the box. So they're a wonderful benefit to and resource for the children in our community. Personally, it's been wonderful just to go and visit and have art in our backyard. That speaks to, and for those who are listening who may be attending the award ceremony, I hope you'll come up and see it, whether you're attending the award ceremony or not. But the American Mural Project really paints the picture of the American worker. It's telling parts of Winstead's history. As much as there isn't necessarily a specific portion of the mural that focuses on Winstead alone. Winstead has historically been a blue collar town, has historically been a place where it's really multifaceted. I don't think that most people, when they think Northwest Connecticut, Winchester, Connecticut, they imagine manufacturing, but actually manufacturing makes up over 30% of the jobs in our town.
Sure.
So to have a diversity of jobs and the type of work that happens in Winstead be reflected in art that's in our community, it's really special. The relationship that we've had with the American Mural Project has been multifaceted, everything from us working with them to promote tourism to us hosting some events of our own over there with different business in the business community to try and have some meet and greet events and generate more attention for our town and to bring new folks in. Even to town trainings, municipal trainings. We've had conversations with them about trying to have town officials go over there and use the space so that we can get inspired, so that we have a little time to focus on self-improvement and improving our professional conduct and the way that we handle ourselves in town hall. And it's great to have not just a wonderful facility, but also the wonderful people that manage it here in our town.
Yeah. And they've certainly made some good use of those buildings over there and intend to do more. So, it's all not ever money and time and money.
Time and money. Yep.
But
And this did start a while ago. I know that
Yeah.
their one of their first major grants, I shouldn't say that with too much authority, but was from Governor Malloy had originally
Really?
given that money. So this is a work in process. Yep. And what a great thing to have invested in.
Yeah. So we will be there on October 17th, and you will be there, I hope.
I will.
And we will have a grand old time handing out certifications to everybody who, all that's what we do once a year. Everybody who's certified for this or that, and we've gotten climate leader designation. We just had a little party, and so it's going to be
absolutely
there. And it is a beautiful spot. It'd be odd if you come to look at it and go, just stare at it for a while, because it's wonderful to just stare at. Let me ask you this then, as a way to wrap things up a little bit. We still have a little more time, but I wanted to get your sense of what Winchester's greatest challenge is that you see, the way you see it in terms of sustainability, whether it's current or what you see coming down the road. Connecticut as a whole has a solid waste crisis. Is it that, or is it something having to do with open space, or what's challenging to Winchester that you see at this point in terms of sustainability?
I'm going to say climate vulnerability is probably Winchester's biggest challenge, and to touch on that a little bit. Winchester, I mentioned that it's had its struggles in the past, and I mentioned the flood of 1955. Obviously, that plays a role in climate vulnerability. But beyond that, we also had, unfortunately, an embezzlement that occurred a little over a decade ago. It was significant. They estimated around $10 million taken from our infrastructure money. It's money that was dedicated towards water and sewer and roadway infrastructure. And it means that Winchester's many years behind where it should be when it comes to these improvements. So you start talking about, right, we had those heavy rains earlier in July. Our director of public works at a meeting today estimated that they lost 1 to 2 months worth of man hours just because they had to fix washed out roads, fix all of the items that were greatly impacted by an overwhelming amount of rain that our storm drain systems weren't able to handle because they haven't been upgraded in decades, and because we haven't had money to invest in these. So we do now have authorization from the town and we are proceeding with a significant amount of roadway improvement, about $24.7 million worth. But infrastructure is so vital when it comes to, and it's going to continue to be vital when it comes to trying to address climate vulnerability. As much as we're all working right now, anybody who's in the Sustainable CT program, most especially, to limit the amount that we're impacting the environment, limit carbon emissions, and all of these really important things. At the end of the day, we're already seeing the impacts of climate change. They're here. And they're hurting us actively. We have real evidence this year of an impact. So continuing that level of investment in a town that's considered to be distressed by the state, in a town that has a 15% poverty rate, it's going to be an economic challenge for us. And beyond that, we need to continue to take time, even though we're trying to take time to focus on infrastructure, we're trying to take time to focus on the ecological items up at the lake. We also need to focus on continued economic growth. We need to focus on tourism on Main Street and other the rehabilitation of these other brownfields buildings. So capacity is also one of our biggest challenges. I think that the will here in Winchester is there to be as sustainable and to be as environmentally and economically and socially conscious as possible. We have the people here to make all of these things happen. But do they have enough time, and do they have the resources needed to accomplish everything that we want? And that's really needed to make our community truly sustainable. So we're on the way. We've got that bronze certification. And it's time to take a look at the next steps and say, what can we realistically do with the time, attention, and money that we have right now? Work towards things that are on that checklist. Sustainable CT is wonderful because they help provide funding for some of the projects that we're able to move forward. And it provides this framework, a lot of which is cost-free. These are simple things that we can do internally that don't cost anything, or that are even have cost savings down the road. We just need to keep checking those boxes. But if you're asking me for 1 or 2 items, it's that bandwidth question and climate vulnerability. Those are the pressing items.
Well, and with respect to the effects of climate change, it's no longer one of these things we can what's going to happen 30 years from now? Let's give our time 30 years to think about it. No, the problem is right now. The problem was yesterday. The problem is, and trying to address some of this stuff is now so urgent in order to really avoid catastrophe in certain respects.
Right.
So I applaud that. And I can see how that's, a major issue in a town like Winchester with it. Did they ever catch the guy, or who stole the money? Did they ever get him?
So it's a finance director. Yeah, actually, and this was long enough ago that he was released from prison not that long.
Oh, really?
But he did serve about 10 years. Yeah.
Wow.
So, and there was a full forensic audit and all of those types of things. It was a very difficult time for Winchester. And another challenge that Winchester faces that I think a lot of government agencies right now, not to speak too politically, but there is a level of distrust in government agencies. There's a level of distrust, regardless of what side of the aisle or what perspective or background you have. It's really hard to take a look at any level of government and say, I'm somebody who supports every single thing that's happening, and I have no questions. And local government's usually where you can go and look somebody in the eye and say, hey, I need this done. I need it done for my family. I need it done because I can't get my car out of my driveway. I can't pay my bill, whatever the case is. So when you have that level of betrayal with an embezzlement, somebody who had worked here for decades, somebody who people in town thought they really knew and trusted, to hurt them like that, you don't recover from that quickly or easily. And coming in as somebody from out of town and seeing the hurt that people are still experiencing from that situation, devastating.
It carries a cost greater than dollars. Very
much so.
Yeah.
And when we try and move forward with things like, it was a challenge, honestly, to get in our $24.7 million infrastructure bill passed, which is needed to fix things like drainage, to fix, our ADA accessible sidewalks, to make this town more sustainable and more welcoming and inviting. It was a challenge to get that passed because people said, what are you going to do with the money?
Yeah.
And none of us were here in town hall when that was occurring, and none of us were a part of it. And that was a decade before I even arrived on the scene, but still the question was asked.
Speaking politics, though, let me ask you a question, because I've asked this of other town managers, and I'm always intrigued by the fact that you're a town manager. You're not. Yes. I mean, in theory, you're apolitical. You're not working for Republicans or Democrats or anybody in between. You're working for the town. And you work at the town's behest. But how is it to ride that wave between Republicans on one side, Democrats on another, and they're each tugging at your shirt sleeves? How do you stay above that fray? Can you stay above it? Do you stay above it?
It's really difficult. It's really difficult. And so the town managers, I belong to the International City Managers Association, which has its own code of ethics. And in that code of ethics, there's a whole list of what we can and can't do related to politics. So we adhere to that. When we're starting to be dragged in different directions, it's actually a really great thing to have, so that you can point to your elected officials and say, hey, you're not supposed to be bringing me into this conversation. This is not what I'm here for. You are the policy agency. I am here to make sure that your will is carried out. You have to make that political decision. Now, honestly, sometimes I have to weigh in. And sometimes there are issues where it's, for me, a matter of right and wrong. And the City Managers Association's made commentary on this. But I was the town administrator in Bolton when the Black Lives Matter movement had its resurgence, and back in 2019 or in 2020 with the pandemic, or around that time, and the George Floyd unfortunate incident.
Sure.
We had to say something. I had to say something. As a human being, you have to step aside from the politics and say, this is what's right. We need to address it as a community. Even at the risk of some of the members of my board of selectmen at the time, possibly, thankfully they didn't, and they were very supportive, but possibly coming back to me and saying, Josh, this isn't what we asked you to do, and your job's on the line. Yeah. A lot of town managers face that. I know of instances even in Connecticut where, for different political reasons, town managers have been asked to step aside or have chosen to step aside. Thankfully, here in Winchester, we have a board of selectmen that really focuses on working together. Regardless, the political boundaries don't play a role. They're focused on the town, and that's why I'm here. So that's why I've been excited to be a part of the town and to serve. But there are a lot of difficult situations, and increasingly, more and more issues are becoming politicized.
Sure.
So regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, things that we would have thought are apolitical and no-brainers, school curriculum 10 years ago, all of a sudden today, huge issue. Can't talk about it. So it's a challenge. I appreciate you bringing it up because I don't think that a lot of people understand the difference between a mayor and a town manager. Yeah. And this is probably the biggest one. We're really not supposed to be involved in those policy decisions. Or at least we're supposed to provide professional feedback, and we're not supposed to.
You're not directly. The voter isn't. You're not going before the voter. The voter isn't going to. You work at the the behest of the town council or of the select board or however it's configured in Winchester. And if they don't like what you're doing, they could toss you.
Yep.
So. Luckily in Connecticut, I think in Connecticut, and certainly to some extent too within New England as a whole, we haven't succumbed to that really partisan, deeply divided, crazy cultural war stuff that's gone on a lot nationally and in the rest of the country. It's a little better. It's a little better in Connecticut. I mean, there are places where it rears its ugly head, but for the most part, Connecticut's much better shape than, I don't know, some other places around that I've been.
I'd agree with you. Yeah. And one of the things that I like most about Sustainable CT, so I don't know how much you know about my background when it comes to me having run for office, and I won't get into too many details, but I ran on a party line, I'll put it that way, when I ran for office. I am somebody who is very passionate about things like sustainability and the like. And this is an opportunity for people like me and people who serve the public in town administration and town management who aren't necessarily elected officials. Sustainable CT is that framework where we can jump in and say, we're all rallying around this. We've got this great nonprofit agency and organization that's working hand in hand with us. And we can make a real difference. It's not often that you get, for lack of a better way to put it, I guess, a bunch of bureaucrats like me, right, who get to feel like they are making that difference. And Sustainable CT is the key, one of the several keys that we use to make that happen.
Tell me what's next for you. Tell me where you're headed.
It's with a really heavy heart. I want to say that. And the people here in Winchester, from the public to the amazing home run staff that we have, I really couldn't ask for better, and nobody could ask for better. And it's hard to step away. I'm not from Northwestern Connecticut, though. My whole family's down in Southeastern Connecticut, so I will be returning to be closer to them. And I am very excited about the new opportunity that I have, which is with the Thames Valley Council for Community Action. I'll be their chief executive officer. And it's a regional nonprofit agency that focuses on providing social services, everything from housing to Head Start education to different fuel assistance in the wintertime and much more. And that's their headquarters are down in Jewett City, but they have offices in Norwich and New London, and they cover the 21 towns in New London County.
Yeah, that's great. Congratulations on that move. Now, you think you run for office again one day?
I don't know if you can tell. I do like politics. I do like.
I think you have that. I think you have that.
That's what a lot of people have said. That's what a lot of people have said. I want to put my full time and attention to the new position. I'm very excited about that. But also with anything, making connections, running for local office is always positive. I'd love to be able to give back to my hometown of Waterford in a way, through the government to some extent, whether it's appointed or in an elected capacity. So it's something that will always be on my mind, I think, throughout my life.
I don't think politics is a dirty word. I think it's great. I really enjoy bringing community together, affecting change, giving people agency to be able to control their neighborhoods and their communities, and really doing that through the ballot box and having an effect. I'm all in favor of it. I wish you luck in that regard. If you choose to go there,
thank you very
congratulations much. And moving on. That's wonderful. I'm glad to hear. Josh, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. We've had a wonderful chat, and I, it's been great. So you've been a great guest. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Jim. And I can't wait to see you in person up here in Winchester in October.
We hope you've enjoyed today's edition of The Impact, a Sustainable CT podcast. As always, this program is recorded, produced, and copyrighted, by Sustainable CT. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for listening. Thank you to our sponsor, the Connecticut Green Bank. And thanks again to Joshua Steele Kelly for joining us. And best of luck to him in his new adventure. Thanks to everyone for taking local actions that have a statewide impact.